Hey, don't do ministry alone. This is practically pastoring.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to another thrilling episode of Practically Pastoring. We'll see how thrilling it is. I am Andrew here with Tim in beautiful Safety Harbor. And way up north in South Carolina, we've got Del.
Howdy ho.
And even further up the coast, we've got Jeffrey Simpson.
Still technically the South, but farther north than anyone else. What's up, everybody?
Barely the South.
Technically.
Listen, we're getting into it today. We have some real issues to discuss, but also it is a show before Easter, so we're going to talk about what Easter things we have going on.
Let's go.
And yeah, we've got a real life topic because ministry is messy, and so we're just going to dive right in. So here's the first question we are dealing with today. It says, I have a sticky situation on my hands and would love some insight. This is a question from our Facebook group. I have a man who has gone through divorce due to him having an emotional affair with another woman. He confessed it openly to his wife, was removed from the ministry, yet the long story short is that he continued to see the woman for a year after he confessed it, and during a messy and ugly divorce. He has since repented to some degree or another of the emotional affair and broke off all communication with this woman and has moved away. He has been extremely honest with me. Each time I have done background looking into his story and the information he shares and talked with people on the other side, his story and actions check out. He is originally from the church in which I serve and has moved back into the area. We are now 2 to 3 years removed from the initial sin. He is asked to rejoin the church, now where it gets sticky. He still desires public ministry and has been invited to preach in places and for people. What is disappointing and wild to me is that he hasn't been a member of a church for 3 years now and hasn't been faithful to a church up until these last 6 months, yet is still getting invitations to speak at churches. While I believe he could be a church member of our church, I strongly disagree that he should be out preaching in churches. He will openly agree that he will never pastor or be on the mission field. He feels as though he is ready to start using his gifts again and could pulpit fill in churches on occasion. I've been transparent with him and told him that I didn't think it was right that he jumped back into pulpit ministry because he is from our church, even though we were not his sending church. There are some in our church that, I'm assuming that means are aware of the problem that happened and still view him through the lens of the prodigal son who has come home and want to openly receive him to membership and don't understand my hesitation and concern about church membership and his desire to still have public ministry. How would you handle this, knowing that he wants to preach out and there are places that would have him? Would you still let him into church membership, knowing that you would not recommend him and disagree with the timing of this in his own life? A couple things that we need to be talking about. We need to talk about membership versus leadership, because two very different issues there. I think forgiveness versus a trust restoration, someone's spiritual gifts or their just natural gifting versus calling and qualifications, private repentance versus public credibility, local church accountability versus outside invites. Can you control what other churches are inviting your members to do? Whole bunch of mess, whole bunch of stuff. Del, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, well, you said kind of where I was going to start. There's a difference between, coming back to church and being restored into ministry. Also, I just want to throw this out there. How could you be repentant if you chose to not be a covenant member of a church? That seems very what some pastors do when they don't want accountability. They go off and either start their own church, but they refuse to sit under the leadership of that. So I would question the sincerity of the repentance if you're unwilling to do a restoration process with the church. Just time, they say time heals all wounds, but we know that time does.
He was a member of that church when it happened.
Right, but he says he's not been a member of any church for 3 years, right? So he's not submitted to any leadership, and like time doesn't make sin go away. So I think that's really important. And also something we want to consider, I'll throw this out there as we kind of chum around it. You may be very clear with this guy that if he does join your church, he can't use it as some kind of implied endorsement. Think about this. If this so-and-so church restored me in membership, he can use that, whether he would do it maliciously or not, he can use that to say, I can go speak at this other place because this church signs off on me. So this is about membership, but it's a little bit stickier than that, especially when you have a guy who's pursuing something you don't even think he's qualified to do at this point. So it's not just membership in this case because there's other aspirations behind it. So that would be a big caution I would get moving forward.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things I would jump off of on that. I agree with you about the endorsement thing, and I think it could work the other way too. Because a guy like this in this situation could be saying, hey, well, I'm getting asked to preach in other churches. So what's the problem here? Why can't I be a member here? The fact that he continued to, he initially went through the divorce and then continued to talk to the woman for another year. And then is even the way this is framed as the repentance is kind of maybe a little iffy. Just because you have a gifting doesn't mean that you inherently have to use that gift. I think that's an issue I see, particularly with younger guys who have public giftings, like leading worship or speaking. Or I've never heard this story with somebody who's got the gift of helps or like administration. Like I've never heard somebody be like, well, I just really want to use my gift and you're holding me back and I want to run the spreadsheets for the church. Like, what's the problem? It's always the pulpit supply. It's always, and like you are not owed to be able to have to use that gift. Just because you're good at speaking doesn't mean you have to teach in a church if you're a Christian. So I think that's important. And then also, I just noticed there's a little bit of maybe a discipleship issue with the congregation that the pastor who's writing this is maybe can touch on. And that is that a lot of people in the congregation don't understand why you would withhold membership or why there would be any kind of discipline, which maybe is a little signal that to you as the pastor to go, not only does this guy apparently not understand the importance of leadership and qualifications, but also the members of my own church don't seem to understand why it's important for biblical qualifications to be followed and why having somebody who has a bent towards deception that seems to be somewhat unrepentant is not a good fit for a public spot in leading and teaching. And then in terms of like the churches wanting him to preach, I think you sit down with this guy and you say, look, it is my opinion as a pastor, as the pastor of the church where you're seeking membership, that yes, we're willing to work with you through membership, but it is not good for you right now. Now, I can't stop you. You're an adult. You can do whatever you want. But I'm just telling you as a leader in this church, we are not going to give you membership if you suddenly start speaking out in other churches and it becomes another area of deception or where you're hiding that you're speaking in other places when we've told you we don't think it's a good idea. So I think that's probably the route I would take with him. In terms of line, I'm kind of interested to hear what you guys think and like what is a timeline you would kind of have a framework for, or is it just kind of, on a case-by-case basis with something like this?
I think Jimmy Eat World taught us takes half the amount of time. Yeah, that's the rule, right? Like half. So, dude, if it's been 3 years, you're going to sit for the next year and a half. I mean, 3 years would make sense too, but hey, let's set it at a year and a half and then reevaluate. I think the Jimmy Eat World rule works here.
Yeah, I think you can obviously encourage the long runway. And then, there's the forgiveness side of this. Yes, forgiveness is immediate, but when it comes to trust, right, that has to be rebuilt. That's going to take time. So yes, receive him with open arms as a brother, but that doesn't mean he immediately gets a microphone.
Yep.
That's kind of the difference here. I love the prodigal son story is great, but remember,
you can be restored to the parking lot ministry too.
The prodigal returns to the father. He doesn't immediately demand a microphone. That's like the big takeaway there. I get that.
Well, yeah, the prodigal returns home, and in that story, the parallel in that story is the prodigal son ain't running the finances of the family. He's squandered everything.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
there's still wisdom in how you're going to utilize this person while they should be used. Absolutely. But I like the idea of the long runway. You could even have some sort of policy in place. I think it would make sense as a church to have a very practical policy, right? No outside preaching or teaching while under restoration unless there's been some sort of request and it's been affirmed by the elders. But you could easily have something like that in your documents. That's not unheard of.
With an asterisk that says the elders retain the right to modify this at any time, case by case.
Yes. Like it should absolutely be handled by the elders. Like I'm totally good with that.
Del, what you got?
Yeah. One of the things I would say, anytime you're offering any kind of discipline, which is ministry, church, relational, it's really good to explain to them the way toward restoration, because just you're going to take some time. That could be kind of nebulous because what are the measurements for that? So I actually have a little list that I use whenever, specifically with this issue, is if you want to see them start over, and maybe this would be helpful to write down and put in front of them and put in front of your elders, just a few things that over the next year and a half, there's going to be faithful membership from you, consistent attendance in that membership, visible submission to the elders in the church, willingness to not preach, no self-promotion. I want to see the full repentance in speech, humility, and relationships. Evidence that he's pursuing holiness, not usefulness, kind of like what Jeff was saying. Like, dude, you need to sit in holiness. And the last one is, I want to see a pattern of service in unseen ways. And I think that's one of the things that if we take this individual before our deacon, before our elder board, say, hey, they want to be restored. Here's some visible things with some measurables in it. That way, at the end of that period, if the answer is still no, it can't just be like, well, I don't feel like you're ready, because then you want a world of hurt. But you're like, no, well, there's not a visible submission to elders. We caught you in the parking lot telling people, oh, they won't let me preach, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think having a list is very important. And I would even put it in writing and put it in front of them just so it's very clear.
This guy should never be surprised by the next step in the process. So
absolutely.
It's like, hey, I thought I was going to be restored to, pulpit ministry by this date, and I wasn't. Wow, that's shocking to me. No, you should know, okay, well, there's this, and this step that I was expected to meet, and I didn't. So it shouldn't be surprising at all. I think there's a few caveats that we have to talk about with this. I think it's very clear, the original poster here, again, this is an anonymous post in our Facebook group. If you want something that we're probably going to be paying close attention to, post it anonymously in the Facebook group. That seems to get a lot of traction. But he clarifies multiple times that it's an emotional affair. I think an emotional affair is an emotional affair, and that we still need to discuss that. But this is not the same thing as a guy has a second family, and I think it needs to be treated differently than this is a guy that has a second family.
Agreed.
That we also need to realize, I think Ed Setzer put out a thing the other day that, the new research is showing that the median-sized Protestant church in the U.S. is about 65 people right now. And, post-COVID, every few years, we're seeing that number get smaller and smaller. There are fewer and fewer people that are able to preach. And so we need an on-ramp for lots and I'm not saying this guy specifically, but I'm saying the reason that this guy's getting invited to come and preach at churches is because there are churches that don't have anyone to fill the pulpit when the pastor is out. Or, and if you're a church of 65 people, chances are that's not a full-time pastor, and maybe he's taking a full-time call and it's going to be 6 months before you have somebody else in that seat. We need to be discipling and training up people to preach so that we are not scraping the bottom of the barrel to get just anybody with a pulse who can handle themselves in front of a microphone to preach. We want people that are called and are competent and are biblically qualified. And so that means that you need to let someone who might not quite be ready when it comes to stage presence to develop some of that. So there needs to be, big churches need to hand over the microphones. If you have 2 or 3 different teaching environments in your church, you need to start raising people up. Instead of just having the best communicator be the one communicating, we need to be training preachers, because otherwise this is the issue that's going to happen. And I would also just say that there's a big difference between, hey, this guy is preaching a sermon and this guy is sharing his testimony. Sometimes a testimony of, hey, I thought I was repentant, but I really wasn't. I got caught. I didn't like that I got caught, but true repentance happened here. I think him sharing his testimony out in public is a very different thing than him preaching. And I know that there are some very muddy waters in between, and someone that doesn't have the purest of motives can easily dance on that line. And someone who is suspicious of this guy can read ulterior motives into what he's doing. But I think as the church, everything that has been laid out, hey, we need a clear restoration process. We need an elder or 2 that has oversight specifically over what's going on in this guy's life. I agree with all of that, but also we need to realize that there are multiple avenues to what could be being discussed here. And yes, the church that this person is putting himself under the authority of should have some say in that, but he could also go to any number of churches that are going to say, heck yeah, brother, here's a microphone. So if he wants to sit under the authority of the leadership of your church, I think that's a good first sign. And you don't need to meet him halfway, but you need to not treat this person as, I think if this is someone that you are welcoming into your church membership, you need to see him the same way that you would see any other church member. And again, work towards restoration. Any other thoughts? Well, then we're going to transition to a very exciting subject because, guys, Easter's coming. I don't know if you could tell, but it is currently Holy Week right now. But before we get into all things Holy Week, Tim, why don't you tell them about our good friends over at Church Merch?
Sure. Here's the deal, guys. Your church members don't need to suffer with uncomfortable shirts. They should be able to wear things that they're proud of and that feels good on their skin. You should probably talk to my buddy Ryan over at Church Merch.
Merch for your church?
That's the one. They're not just inexpensive. I think they are very competitively priced. We use them at Lakeview. They're also really good quality. This is for your guests, your volunteers, your events, your conference follow-up stuff. We've used them for our conferences in the past. Andrew's drinking out of one of their mugs right now. So it's not just shirts. It's really any merch you need. Head on over to promotionsguide.com/church merch. They will take care of all of your church needs. Quick church merch story. We recently purchased the Can I Pray For You shirts at Lakeview. We had the Lakeview logo put on the front, which they did at no extra cost for us. And then on the back, it says, Can I Pray For You? And those have been our number one selling shirts like 3 weeks in a row. Like people are loving them. They're super comfy. And we're already hearing stories back of how people are praying for people in the wild.
Timmy, what happened when you wore your Can I Pray For You shirt to Busch Gardens the other day?
I recently wore mine to Busch Gardens.
Spring break. He doesn't just go to Busch Gardens on a school night.
It was spring break, went with the kiddos, and we were about an hour or so in, and we ventured over to the part where you can start playing all of the fair games and all the things that zap your money. And before you know it, there was a worker that said, "Hey, are you serious?" And I said, "What?" He said, "Are you really going to pray for people?" And I said, "Do you need prayer?" And he said, "I need prayer." So I started praying for him, and then I glanced up, and then there was another worker who approached me, and then I glanced up again, and a line began to form. They were all Busch Gardens employees, and they all wanted prayer. So I just prayed for each one individually.
How many of them were praying for a better job?
None.
Oh, really?
They were like,
way to go, Busch Gardens.
They were serious prayer requests.
Anheuser-Busch.
And of course, my kid
Tim
said,
thinks that you are a great employee.
My kid said, of course,
employer.
Dad, like we would go to Busch Gardens with you, and you're praying for people in the middle of it. That's like, of course.
It's pretty awesome.
It was awesome. Church merch. They're great.
Merch for your church. Go check them out.
Love it.
All right, fellas. No real structure to this question. It's just that it is Holy Week. Easter is 6 days from today.
Wow.
Yesterday was Palm Sunday. Yesterday was Sunday. This is the morning. No, that's later. What are you doing differently than this year than you've done in years past? And what tried and true traditions are you sticking to? Jeff, why don't you kick us off?
I am not doing anything different. It will be a quote-unquote normal Easter Sunday for us. We will probably have like a little, some flowers, photo booth, families dressing up, taking a picture for Easter 2026. I mean, the difference this year is probably...
Define dressing up. What is your dress up for Easter?
In my church, it is like a nice, like for the men, like a pair of khakis and like a nice polo shirt or like a, those like dry fit like button-up shirts.
Golf shirt.
Yeah, we don't dress up a ton here because of our the socioeconomic spot we're in. A lot of people don't have like suits and stuff, but there will be some people in suits probably. Specifically, the older Africans in my congregation, they will really dress up. Probably going to see some big hats on those African ladies, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And then we will take some pictures with the family. I mean, the thing I'm pretty excited about as a, I guess, former worship leader who is now also a worship leader and a pastor is that our band is the best it's ever been. So I'm pretty happy about that. It'll be fun. I have handed over song choice to someone else and like service planning to someone else. So it's been fun to watch that person be excited about our band play the songs that they picked well. So yesterday was pretty fun. She like clapped really loud at the end of the last song. It was kind of funny. The only real different thing I'm doing this year is I'm doing a wedding on Good Friday. So I'm going to do a wedding at like 4:30 on Good Friday and then do Good Friday service Tenebrae at 7 o'clock. So that'll be kind of different. And then I'll probably go get a steak in an empty restaurant because none of the Catholics will be there on Good Friday night.
Yeah.
It'll be awesome.
So we're doing some different things, some not in our control that are different. Our sunrise service is at a different location because our pier and marina are still under construction post hurricanes. And so we're pivoting to another side of.
Tell me it's still a water view.
Oh, it's still it's the waterfront park instead of the marina park.
Okay,
so
that's
we're literally on the other side of the parking lot.
Yeah.
But it's a different location. My role in that service is different. That's a partnership with all of the local downtown Safety Harbor churches. And the lilies and poinsettias that you would typically only see at your church once or twice a year, a lot of those people come out to that service.
So everyone with a coexist bumper shows up?
Yes, it's one of those.
Got it.
And I'm not preaching this year, so that's exciting. I'm showing up.
Who knows what they're going to say?
Yeah, who knows?
Do you invite your people to this?
It's fine. Like
Okay.
everyone's Orthodox who's organizing it.
Still scares me.
The people that show up might not be.
True.
But the people that are allowed to touch the microphones are all Orthodox.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
That's good.
So that's exciting. Sam.
Very little planning for you, which is great.
Yeah, I'm doing a call to worship, and I recruited the apostolic preacher in town. He's the one doing the
Self-proclaimed?
I think it's their denomination, but he's doing the 25-ish minute sermonette this year. So that should be pretty exciting. So the Bishop Samuel Hunt is his name. So that's pretty great. We do not do a Monday, Thursday, or Good Friday service. And I kind of wish we did, because when planning we've been in the book of John for 30 weeks, and I should have had one more week than I actually did, because yesterday we covered through the first half of John 19. And so I said, guys,
You're
this
right
is,
there.
This is my fault.
You're right there.
We can either cover the crucifixion and burial on Easter Sunday or the resurrection on Easter Sunday. So we're doing the resurrection on Easter Sunday. Then the next week we're doing the crucifixion and burial. So we're
a
going
lot of
backwards.
shows open in the future.
Yeah. And then they go back.
There you go.
That's kind of what we're doing. And so then we were supposed to end the series on the 12th. So we're ending up the next week. But we have an egg hunt for all of our kids that are here at the church. So that's a pretty big deal. We have another one for the preschool that rents from us. So we put on a thing for them that we then invite their families out to the Easter service. So that's Thursday. So it's a busy week. It's not a whole lot different than most other Easter years. We had an extra service last night. That was another church in our area that wanted to do a Holy Week baptism service, and they rent in a community center, and they weren't allowed to fill a baptistry in the community center. And so we allowed them to use our space. So there's a few things that are, little tweaks that are different, but nothing really that our people are going to notice is all that different, except for they have to park in a different location for the sunrise service.
There'll be a few more people in church.
Well, yes, but that happens every Easter. So
Sure.
that's not different from previous Easters.
True.
This is the time of year when pastors are like, man, I know that person, but I cannot remember their name.
Mm-hmm. Hey, guy, how are you doing?
And someone comes up to you like, hey, pastor, great to see you. And I'm like, I'm your pastor, so you think. And I could not tell you your name.
That's funny.
Yep.
Also,
Yeah,
that's what Tim calls being Tim. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people at your church. You don't know everybody's name.
I don't.
That's-
But there's not an expectation.
There's an expectation.
Tim's not a
for
shepherd anymore.
shepherd.
He's just a rancher now.
He's just a rancher. He's got
He's
ATV
moving up
instead of a horse.
That's right.
Yeah, this Sunday we're actually getting on that train. We're streaming in Tim's service, and he's going multi-site. That's
There
what we're
you go.
doing for Easter.
Hey, listen, if you're in Florida, if you're in South Carolina, we are so glad that you're here at Lakeview
one church, multiple locations. Guys, you know the drill.
Scan
Exactly.
that QR code, and you can give or fill out a new member's card.
And get your gift in the lobby.
That's right.
No, this Sunday we're having Good Friday this year. So I'll be doing the heavy lifting on Good Friday as far as communicating and everything. We have an old, a lot of churches with new sanctuaries have the old sanctuary. So we're having the old sanctuary. We're going to pack it out for Good Friday. And then Sunday, we're expecting a lot. We're doing multiple services this Sunday. And then we actually did this thing last year, and it was a hit. So we're doing it again. Instead of us doing all the decorating and stuff, we just took a cross and we covered it with like a metal chicken wire. And we told people to bring their own flowers and put it in the cross.
Yeah,
Like
that-
it's so many flowers. We have to
more
take them
popular than
down,
any photo spot you could ever build.
and it costs you like nothing. And it's
Yep.
beautiful. It's beautiful. And then you don't have to take the photos because people are doing their own selfie thing.
Genius.
So genius. So anyways, it's a cool idea. It worked really well last year. So we'll do it again this year. And then, like I said, for services, we're having two, not having Sunday evening services. Sometimes we do students on Sundays nights, but not this year. We're throwing all of our eggs in the basket, so to speak, on Sunday morning.
We
Anything different this year at Lakeview, Tim?
it's the exact same as it's a little it's slightly different, but there's meaning behind that. Typically, you go all out on Easter Sunday, and I get that. Like we've done that in the past before, but we went all out, so to speak, yesterday. We rented, and it was Palm Sunday. We rented a big tent, not the one we had last year for the 30th anniversary, but my buddy Brandon over at Elite Event Rentals, shout out. He said, man, I've got a better tent for you because I want you guys to be able to see the sunrise on Easter Sunday. So this tent is taller. There's no front on it, and it's just got this magnificent view, but it'll provide the shade.
Is it canvas? Is the roof canvas? I couldn't
believe so.
tell.
Yeah, and there's no obnoxiously long rope tie downs that come out 20 feet on each side for old people to trip over this time, which was driving me nuts. We had caution tape and cones everywhere last year, so we didn't have to do it this year. So we had the big tent, but that served multiple purposes. One,
and your church was founded in a tent.
Exactly. There's history here with the tent on that exact site where the tent is right now. So we originally worshiped under that tent 30 years ago. So getting to do that again is really special. It's also really special because we get to have our entire church family at one service. So we have not been a one service church for over 5 years now. The building, as you guys know, it just doesn't adequately fit for a one service church. So we've outgrown it, which is great. Praise God. But every now and then it's really nice to see,
everybody.
people.
Yeah.
I see everyone every week, but not everyone sees everyone every week. So I had several reach out to me last night saying it was great seeing people I haven't seen in years, but know they still attend Lakeview. That's kind of heartbreaking at the same time. It's like, oh, that's really sad, but I'm glad you got to see people. My own wife, I would say that a dozen people introduced themselves to her because they've been coming
Hilarious.
to the 9:30 service. Steph's been the 11 o'clock service for, since
Because
the
she's a
inception.
single mom on Sunday mornings.
It will always be the 11 o'clock service. So we had multiple people like, hey, can we meet your wife? I'm like, love to introduce you to my wife. It was awesome. So we packed out the tent. We had, it was the single largest Sunday in the history of Lakeview. And it wasn't even close. I think it beat it by 200 people, which was last year's 30th anniversary, non-holiday Sunday. And we had a blast. We had food trucks. We had bounce houses in the worship center, which we tasked our youth pastor, Todd, hey, just make this fun. And boy, did he. The kids had an absolute blast. We didn't know there was going to be 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts when we planned this.
So moving the bounce houses into the worship center was a good idea.
It was the plan from the beginning. Like because we turned our entire grassy area into a parking lot, we had no room for bounce houses. So we said, well, the worship center is clear because we're all outside together. Let's just move the chairs and set up the bounce houses inside. And we did. And then a week before we find out there's going to be wind gusts of over 40 miles an hour, which means no bounce houses would have been allowed on our property, period, because they wouldn't have set them up. Praise God. It was awesome. They had a blast. People were eating. People were hanging out. I now see like the benefit of eating together after church. I will say getting from like my seat in the tent to my family, then to the food truck, it took an hour and 15 minutes.
I believe that. Yeah.
Because you got it. Yeah. You know.
Listen,
you want to talk and you want to hang out. And like, I was starving.
We were like 85 people yesterday. And by the time I got to the fellowship hall, the food was gone.
That's what I'm saying. So, like I eventually made it over to the food trucks. We had a blast. Seeing everybody eat was great. I texted Andrew because I'm like, oh, so this must be what it feels like to like only preach one service. Yeah. It was a great feeling. People were like, oh, you must be exhausted. I was like, I've been preaching multiple services for 6 years. Like, only preaching one service was I felt amazing.
Yeah, but you couldn't eliminate a joke from between.
That was the only issue. There was no notes.
There was no test audience.
No, like midway through, I had made mental notes, and I was like, "Stop! You're not preaching this again. Like, this is one and done. Like, this is it. You're not getting 3 chances at this sermon." So that was the only weird part of it. We had a blast. We also made a fun announcement with our building campaign. We are well on our way. There's a very important meeting this week that needs to take place. That's going to take place. It's county approval for phase 1. So once we get the go ahead, it is all systems go. We might be having a groundbreaking ceremony within 3 weeks.
That's
so
very exciting.
We are
pretty cool.
Stoked to put some shovels in the ground and get this thing rolling.
So how does the tent work for next week?
So we have
or this week. I'm sorry, it's Holy Week.
Here's the great thing about the tent. The company wasn't using it. So I said, hey, can we come to your property a couple of weeks early and set it up? I was like, sure. Well, the day they set it up, my phone started blowing up from just people that have known for a while, other churches reaching out like, what is going on? So you had this, this advertising piece sitting right there that you didn't even really plan on just because they weren't using the tent. So we used the tent on Palm Sunday. We will also use the tent again on Good Friday. So we'll have our first ever outdoor Good Friday service. So I had them put lights in the tent this year for the first time, which I'm so glad they did.
You're doing an old school crusade at this point. You're really doing a crusade.
Our sound
a revival
reached out to me and said, thank you so much for having lights this year. We didn't have to bring our own floodlights to do all the setup because they got to the church at 1:45 in the morning.
Golly.
It was a 6.5 hour setup. You know how it is, like running sound and everything. So it was a 6.5 hour setup on our sound team, which they're paid.
Okay.
So it wasn't like volunteers overnight. Like they were absolutely paid by the hour to do that really sweet setup.
Smart.
So we have lights in there. Frank is preaching Good Friday. So this will be the first time since being lead pastor of Lakeview Church that I will sit with my family on a Good Friday service. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I can't say my kids are equally as stoked. Turns out the Good Friday sermon is their favorite sermon every year because Dad says some things that Dad doesn't normally say in sermons. So my own son is trying to boycott, telling me he's not going, but he's totally going. Aaron, you're going to be sitting next to me, and
He doesn't listen to this podcast.
You're right. He definitely does.
Our
not.
wives don't listen to this podcast.
No.
There's no way our kids do.
So our Holy Week at Lakeview is a ton of fun. We've got Palm Sunday. We've got Maundy Thursday. We've got a prayer walk this year. As you guys know, we've got 36 beautiful acres to enjoy at Lakeview. So our prayer team said, hey, do you mind if we set up prayer stations, serve communion? They are just taking the ball and running with it. Someone this morning was like, hey, can you send me your theme for the prayer walk? And I was like, I'll get you in touch with the prayer team. Like I have
my theme.
I gave them the green light and said, run with this. So they've been doing all the advertising and the posting and the promoting. So we've got a fun prayer
walk with it
on Maundy Thursday. I'm going to walk with it. Exactly. I'm going to walk with it. I'm going to
Don't run with it, team. Just walk with it.
Just go at a good pace around the lake. Good Friday. Frankie, the man, is preaching. He's down to his final 3 sermons at Lakeview before the launch of Cross and Crown. Boys, I am going to miss having Frank in Pulpit Supply. I'm just telling you right now.
I get it.
Like the thought of not having Frank every 4 to 6 weeks, which I have had in my back pocket for the last year and a half, has been the biggest blessing ever. Frank, if you are watching or listening, I already miss you, but I'm stoked for Good Friday. And then Easter Sunday, we're going to have a blast. 7 a.m. sunrise, outdoor, under the tent, on the lake. It's going to be magnificent. And then we'll have a 10 a.m. also outdoor. So this will be our first 10 a.m. outdoor Easter service under the tent since, I guess, the early days of Lakeview, which will be really, really cool. So it's going to be a sweet week. I'm excited.
It's going to be a whole lot of stuff happening under that tent.
There's a lot of happenings under the tent at Lakeview Church.
Listen, I think that's about it for this episode, guys. We've covered some restoration stuff. We've covered Easter. I think we're going to now go get ready for Easter services. So y'all tune in next time. Thank you to Church Merch for taking such good care of us. And hey, if you are not a member of our Facebook group, what are you waiting for? I think I was looking the other day. We're about to hit 1,300 members.
Nice.
1,300 pastors bouncing ideas off each other. Why wouldn't you want to be a part of a group like that if you
get
are
on
sharing this calling? Come on now. Hey, we will see y'all next time.
See ya.